Welcome back to the racing here at Oulton Park. Well, after a fantastically exciting race one, it was a massive shame to lose Richard Chamberlain early on in the race due to mechanical problems. Let's go and catch up with him now and see if the car is ready to race for race two. Richard, you got a fantastic start in race one. So disappointing to finish the way it did. What happened?
Well, it's the ongoing problem again. Suddenly the car just effectively switched off after, I think, 5 or 6 laps, and that was the end of it. It was a great race though. It's so full on round here. It's fantastic. It really is. It
was certainly very enjoyable to watch from where we were. Have you got the problem sorted?
In all honesty, we don't know. It's kind of trial and error, which I know doesn't sound very professional. We log 100 odd channels. Every single channel says it's perfect. Quite clearly it's not.
Well, let's hope that Richard Chamberlain can make it all the way through to the checkered flag this time around. The car's then on the pace lap, awaiting the rolling start, with in pole position Jim Geddy, the race one winner in the absolutely immaculate McLaren. Alongside him on the front row of the grid is Derek Johnson, Richard Chamberlain, and Jordan Witt complete row 2, Ian Loggy, and Nigel Muskell row 3, and Colin Ross the first of the Group 3 cars, 7th on the grid, with Peter Rowbottom always improving in the Ferrari. So the lights out on the pace car. When that peels in, they will fly in formation over Dearly. When the red lights go out, the race will be underway. Now, will Derek Johnson in his Ferrari be able to do anything about the McLaren of Jim Geddy? That is going to be the challenge for Johnson, whereas Geddy and the McLaren would like to be able to take this a little bit more smoothly through checkered flag. The way we go at the start of the race, it's a lightning start from Jim Geddy, who leads into Oulton for the first time, and Richard Chamberlain snatches the place away from Derek Johnson. So Chamberlain, the Porsche, moves up into second position. Johnson to make it back in third. It's Jordan Witt running in fourth. Nigel Muskell in fifth. Colin Prost completes the top 6 just ahead of Chris Bentley as Jim Geddy leads it. And Geddy is going to do his utmost to try and pull clear in the early stages. He's been embroiled in such a close battle in race one, and whilst that gave us plenty of entertainment, it's not really what Jim had in mind for his run at Oulton Park today. So now he's got the advantage. Can he pull away from Richard Chamberlain? I'd venture that's going to be easier said than done, because that Porsche is incredibly rapid, particularly in a straight line, and Richard is a quick pilot as well, so he's staying in touch with Jim Geddy as they bounce through Britons for the first time, over Hilltop and then down into the braking area for Hizzies. Almost bouncing off the suspension is Richard Chamberlain. He's pushing very, very hard to stay in touch with Jim Geddy in the McLaren at the moment, though. That is proving to be the right strategy, as fair of them just try to move clear of Derek Johnson. Then Jordan Witt, Nigel Muskell, Colin Prost, Chris Bentley, David Witt and Peter Rowbottom all showing strongly. As round Druids comes the race leader, Jim Geddy, and he's still got Richard Chamberlain really latched to his tail, and Chamberlain is not enabling the McLaren to break clear here. And that will be of real concern to some of the pundits in the GT Cup paddock, because I think they'd have thought that McLaren's an all-round package will be able to move clear of the Porsche. The fact that Richard Chamberlain is able to stay so close to him really shows the equalisation within the GT Cup Championship works, because in each group the cars are equalised and balanced so they perform as evenly as possible, and that is exactly what's working very, very nicely in these early stages of the race as Peter Rowbottom continues to progress in the number 11 car, which Peter is developing considerably between each round. So the leading duo as close as you like into Island Bend, and we're not too far adrift here with a challenge from the lead from Richard Chamberlain, and Chamberlain is really pressurising Jim Geddy, and that's no mean feat. And so Richard is staying right under the McLaren's tail, really making Jim work very hard here. The question for Richard, though, is whether that car is going to be able to last the distance. I sincerely hope it will, because we should then be treated to a bit of a battle royal for overall honours. So into Hizzies once more. Jim Geddy riding the curbs a little bit in the McLaren as he attempts to try and move clear of the Porsche of Richard Chamberlain, because it's really through the corners where Geddy's got the advantage. A tiny puff of smoke there coming from the Porsche of Chamberlain. Let's hope that that is not the precursor to anything a little bit more serious. Then into Druids, and Chamberlain closing on Geddy. And Chamberlain in the Porsche, plants his right foot, propels the Porsche along that short chute towards Lodge Corner. All the while they're moving clear of Derek Johnson, Chris Bentley and David Witt. That's a nice battle that's just beginning to come together. Witt in a very attractive chevron, trying to close up onto the tail of Chris Bentley. The same goes to the battle for the lead, which is very much as it was, which is Richard Chamberlain staying right up onto the tail of Jim Geddy. Jordan Whitted is who leads Group 2 at the moment, and Jordan looking pretty smooth. He's running 4th in the race overall as well. The chevron performing very nicely at Oulton Park. It's a circuit that really suits the characteristics of the chevron. So Chamberlain and Geddy, no change in their overall position, and also no change in the gap between the pair of them. Chamberlain is still keeping the McLaren very honest for my money. That gap is well under 2 seconds as they accelerate out of Shell Oil's corner into the braking zone for the chicane at Britain's. Over the curbs, Chamberlain may be just slightly missing the apex. That may give Geddy a 1/10 of a second's advantage or thereabouts as he comes over Hilltop down into the braking zone for Hizzies, and Chamberlain still pushing very, very hard in pursuit of the McLaren of Jim Geddy and McLaren. Well, really hope we see more of it over the remainder of the GT Cup Championship season. Maybe see more than one. That would be absolutely super, wouldn't it? See a couple of the McLarens on the grid in the GT Cup. The battle between Chris Bentley and David Witt continues, with Bentley just able to still hold that advantage over David Witt. Has Richard Chamberlain closed in further still on Jim Geddy? Maybe he has by a couple of tenths, you know. And Chamberlain could be timing this very nicely as we move towards the second half of the race, in terms of just pacing that Porsche and really picking his moment to pounce on the McLaren. So it's Jim Geddy who's going to lead through at the end of this lap. But let's take a look at the gap between the pair of them as they come across the line, and that is definitely less than it was that last time round, isn't it? It's probably 1.5 seconds, no more than that. So Richard Chamberlain closing in once more on the McLaren. Jordan Witt continuing to make good progress in the chevron as he leads Group 2. There's Nigel Mustel in the Audi. Just behind Nigel is the Group 3 leader, Colin Broster. Again, love to see more of the Audi R8 over the remainder of the GT Cup Championship season. Really spectacular car. Here come the leaders, and still Chamberlain staying with Jim Geddy, although Geddy may have just had the better of Chamberlain over the first half of this lap, riding the curves once more, Geddy, and he is taking every risk going, isn't he, through some of these slow corners to try and pull away from the Porsche, because he knows that once they hit a straight section of the track, the Porsche will perform, except that Chamberlain's slowing. Oh no! Richard Chamberlain hits trouble and he tours into Hizzies. Will he make it back to the pits, or is that going to be game over here and now? Unfortunately, it looks like it is the end of Richard Chamberlain's day. So Chamberlain pulls off the track, his race done, having given a very, very fine pursuit of Jim Geddy. That now releases Geddy well clear of Derek Johnson. And Geddy's now in that territory where every gear change, every click, every rattle in that car will seem very, very loud as he sets off to try and claim the double victory here at Oulton Park in the GT Cup Championship. It's the second place man, Derek Johnson. Johnson and Ferrari, though, racking up the points with an eye towards the championship. Colin Broster leading Group 3. Again, this in terms of championship points, looks as if it's going to be a very profitable visit to the Cheshire circuit for Colin Broster. As he rumbles into another lap in the Porsche. Throws all he goes. Vastly experienced driver Colin Broster. Chris Bentley and David Witt, their battle continues, and David Witt is definitely closing in on Chris Bentley as we move towards the latter stage of the race. Now, will David be able to make his way through? The chevron nimble agile through the corners, the Porsche quite strong on the straights, and this is a resumption of the battle we saw at Brands Hatch back in June, where Chris Bentley and David Witt had a race-long tussle in one of the races, where David eventually got through and then promptly spun into the gravel trap. So will David be able to get through? If he does pass Chris, will he be able to keep it out of the kitty litter as his son Jordan peels into the pit lane and into retirement? So great shame for Jordan Witt, as arriving into Lodge for the final time is Jim Geddy. He's going to the double here at Oulton Park. It's been an emphatic performance, flashing his headlights. Applause from the pit wall. And it's Jim Geddy who has the victory over Derek Johnson. 10 seconds Geddy's advantage. Let's take a look at the final results with the win for Jim Geddy. Derek Johnson in second, Nigel Mustel completing the race podium, with Group 3 being claimed by Colin Broster. In terms of the group results, Group 1 is the top three in the race overall, so Jim Geddy from Derek Johnson and Nigel Mustel, and then Group 3, Colin Broster from Chris Bentley, who did withstand that challenge from David Witt. Applause and trophies and champagne on the podium at Oulton Park.
Well, Jim, you've got to be happy with those results from today.
Yep, really happy. First race in 9 months, so especially with the car. Didn't miss a beat with a brake issue after about 3-4 laps the second race, but fortunately we broke Richard, and unfortunately got a puncture. But we got away. But just delighted. That's what I wanted. 2 races, qualify with no problems. Hopefully that's the start of good things for McLaren. So.
Well, the championship very, very tight. In Group 1, Derek Johnston leads the way from Kevin Riley and Martin Short. Group 2, Pete Smallwood from David Witt, and then the Wales, Nick and Harry. And in Group 3, Chris Bentley from Peter Rowbottom and Colin Broster. When you combine those overall standings, then you'll see that Chris Bentley is snapping on the heels of Derek Johnston. Very, very tight between the pair of them, with Pete Smallwood not too far adrift in 3rd position.
Well, that brings us to the end of another busy day of racing for the GT Cup Championship. A great couple of results there for Jim Geddy in the McLaren in his first race of the season. Next time out, we'll be heading back to Brands Hatch, but this time we'll be taking on the mighty GP circuit. You can catch all of the highlights right here on Motors TV on the 14th of September at 8 p.m. I'll see you then.